And before we jump into everything, I want to give a thank you and a shout out to Talent Stacker, who is sponsoring this video, which is perfect because Talent Stacker is exactly how I started getting into Salesforce, and that's how I transitioned careers. I first heard about Talent Stacker on a finance podcast. The podcast is Choose FI. There have been multiple episodes around Talent Stacker, and I listened to all of those. So eventually I was like, okay, let me look into this. And at the time of me listening to that, I knew I wanted to transition careers, but I didn't want to go back to college. I didn't want to have to learn anything that was crazy difficult or would take me years and years to learn. And I really wanted to go into something where I have a high earning potential within a couple or few years. First, I went through the 5-day challenge. It's a free 5-day challenge, still around. If you're interested, I will have that link down below. I realized it was something that I wanted to pursue, and then I enrolled in the Talent Stacker program in March 2021. And then in less than a year, I landed my current Salesforce job. So literally a year ago, at the time of me filming this, so back in January 2022, I was still a microbiologist. That was what I had done for 4 years at the same company. I went to school for biology. I even have my master's degree in biology, but I knew it was something I no longer wanted to pursue. This was part of the Great Resignation time or the Great Transition. I have a video on that. I can link it down below, and I go into more detail as to why I did this and why I wanted to transition careers. But for me, Salesforce and the Talent Stacker program was exactly what I was looking for. So I dove in head first and started working through the trailhead, working through the modules in the program. Talent Stacker is a career development program or a career transition program that is going to help you transition from one career into another, or just help you get into a Salesforce career, even if it's something you've already been doing. So like myself, I was a microbiologist. I was able to transition. I had no tech experience, nothing of that sort. Same with thousands of other people in the program. They do not have tech experience. It's teachers, it's nurses, it's stay-at-home moms. All of these different people with many different backgrounds are able to land Salesforce careers through Talent Stacker. This program is going to help guide you into a Salesforce career. You will be able to network with thousands of people. You're going to learn how to improve your LinkedIn, the best way to go about studying. You can get interview tips, and then you also get to participate in a mock project. So you get hands-on experience in Salesforce, and you can learn much more quickly. I do want to share some stats from 2022. The first one being that over 500 Talent Stacker members landed Salesforce roles in 2022. Myself being one of those people. The sum of the salary across those jobs landed totals over $40 million. So you should expect a job making at least $60,000. There were 3 companies that hired over 10 Talent Stacker members, and then there were 2 companies that hired over 20 Talent Stacker members each. So this Talent Stacker program is now well known. Many recruiters know about it. Companies know about it. They are hiring Talent Stackers because we are hard workers, and they see that we really are dedicated to learning the platform and going after something new. Going into it, honestly, I had a lot of doubts. I didn't think it was possible. I was very intimidated and very afraid, but once I was in there and starting to do everything, I realized this is what I wanted. I kept working toward it, and eventually I landed that Salesforce role. So it took me about a year. Many people land a job within a few months. They get certified within a couple of months and then land a job within a few months, but you can expect to land a job within 6 months, maybe up to a year. Everybody's journey is different, but it's definitely possible even if you don't have a tech background or you haven't been working for several years. The exciting thing is that for January, Talent Stacker has open enrollment. So once you go to their website, you can literally enroll today if you wanted to. I will have my link down below in the description box. It's talentstacker.com/Leila. So you can literally enroll today, or if you would rather take the free 5-day challenge, you can do that as well. Go through the 5 days, take a little bit of time if you need to, and then you can go ahead and enroll. That investment has paid off for me in more ways than one. I'm so glad I did it. And oftentimes I literally am sitting at my desk like, wow, this is my life now. This is my career now. And I find that pretty mind-blowing. So if you're looking for a career change in a strong industry and to increase your income, then definitely look into the Talent Stacker program. As I said, that will be linked down below, or you can go to talentstacker.com/Leila. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment those down below or email me. And thank you again to Talent Stacker for sponsoring this video. Let's first start with a little bit about my job. So I landed my job in March 2022. I started on March 1st. My title is Salesforce Analyst. However, everybody at the company, there's like, I don't know, 60 people, 60 employees at the company, including the managers and such. We are all consultants. So I'm an analyst, but a consultant. I work with clients, all these. I'll talk more about my job in just a moment. My base pay started at $60,000. To be honest, this is on the lower end of Salesforce roles as well as Salesforce consulting. So I knew that going into this, but I was okay with that because I wanted to gain the experience from consulting, from Salesforce in general. So 60K base with a 10% bonus. And then I did get a 5% raise about 6 months into my job. For my company specifically, I absolutely love the benefits, but strong benefits are a pretty standard thing across many tech companies. So for my company specifically, I have unlimited PTO, I have a 401k with a 6% match vested immediately. I have really good health insurance that they cover 99% of. There's a lot of flexibility. If I need to go to an appointment or anything of that sort, I can do that. I work from home. I'm 100% remote, which was a huge thing. And that's one of the top things that I wanted out of my new career. We also have the ability to, continue our learning. They pay for our certifications up to 2 times, so we can fail and then take it again. They'll pay for it. They pay for our study materials, and then we have like a leadership development program, which is obviously good in general for my career and my resume. So that's specific to my company, but you'll see that if you apply to other jobs, the benefits are pretty similar. Next, I want to go into my timeline. So kind of breaking down what I did in the first 3 months, then the next 3 months, and so on. So in the first 3 months, that was onboarding. Literally, I was billing the bulk of my time to onboarding. As a consultant, I do have to bill my time. So whatever I spend my time doing throughout the day, I have to record that in our little time tracker that is within Salesforce. So from March to May, I was onboarding, I was learning about the company, I did get to shadow people. Now my role specifically as an analyst / consultant, I am the lowest role at the company. So typically what I would have to end up doing if I was doing any sort of work was the simple build stuff, any sort of simple configuration in Salesforce. I was given tasks like that, or somebody would build something in Salesforce and I would be responsible for writing up test cases, like how to test something, and I would test it. Another big thing for my role is documentation. So I would take screenshots of things and create like a job aid or just documentation of how to do something. I find that really enjoyable. I like both testing, I like writing up test cases, and I like documentation. So it's been really nice for me to do that. And I feel like my previous job set me up for success with that because I did a lot of documentation and I'm just an organized person. So that was really the first 3 months, and also something I've continued. So I've always done testing, documentation, and configuration, and it has advanced throughout the months. And then from 3 months to 6 months, so from June through August, I did get more tasks, so I had more responsibilities. I was allowed to build more within Salesforce, a little bit of more complex things. During this time, I did feel a lot better with my Salesforce skills, but I would still often ask for help. And luckily, my company has an amazing team. I absolutely love the people that I work with. Granted, I don't really spend too much time with them. Like, I don't get to know anybody on a personal level, really. There's just like one person who I chat with the most. But no matter what, people are willing to hop on a call and help me. I also have a team where we spend the most time together. So I'm typically working on the same clients as my team. Some of us have different clients, but for the most part, they're people that I could reach out to for help. And that's what I did a lot of from, starting, and then through 6 months, I was reaching out for a lot of help if I was not able to find it for myself. We're going to talk more about the skills that you really need to be a Salesforce consultant, but I will say right now that being resourceful is a huge one. And I think a lot of younger people struggle with this. So you've got to just try to find stuff before asking for help, or at least that's what I prefer to do, because then you learn much better and you obviously show that you can do things on your own. During this time, I actually was working on like 7 to 8 clients, which I found to be a lot. You do have to shift your attention quite frequently. I was working on one client, then something would come up and I would have to start focusing on that, or have a meeting come up for a client, or I had to hop on a call, whatever the case may be. But having 7 to 8 clients is quite a lot, and I was just doing small things for each of them, but I did have one client who I was spending the most hours on per week. And if I'm spending any time on a client, whether that's testing, whether I'm in a meeting, whether I'm building within their Salesforce, implementing something in their Salesforce, I bill my time to that client, and I have to do that every day. We're expected at my company to have about 40 hours of billable time per week, give or take, because some things don't count as billable. Like if we have a team stand up or something like that, that doesn't go to a specific client. That would just be internal, and that doesn't count as billable, but it's still something that we log in our time tracker. For the one client that I mentioned that I was spending more time with, I did start giving demos, which I love giving demos. I feel like I'm good at it. Other people have said I'm good at it, and that's really increased my confidence with speaking in front of others. It is on Zoom, but still it's, a lot of pressure, or it just feels like a lot of pressure, and it is presenting. So I've gained a lot of confidence with that, and I really enjoy giving demos now, and I was glad to be given that responsibility, because I don't think that's necessarily something that my position would always do at the company. But yeah, doing that allowed me to actually, after 6 months, we had a performance review. My company only gives pay raises and promotions in the third quarter and in the first quarter. So that was, my 6 months was after the third quarter, which is when I asked for a raise. And I was able to have all these points as to why I deserved a raise. And that was because I was, figuring things out. I was giving these demos. I was talking to clients. I was providing solutions for clients. I feel like that was something that really helped me during those 3 to 6 months. And I'm not sure if every company would allow you to speak with clients, or what's your responsibilities, what you're allowed to do per se. But luckily, my managers did allow me to speak up more. And I really appreciated that, because it has helped me grow in more ways than one. Okay, then from 6 months to 9 months, so September through November. And I guess this was when I had my performance evaluation, and that's when I asked for a raise. But the previous 6-7 months leading up to that really helped. So just trying to take on more responsibility and doing those demos helped me to get the pay raise. September through November, I was given more responsibilities. I did have to work on a big project. So one of my clients was doing a huge data migration, so moving from one platform to another. And this was really important, because they were their customers' payment information that we had to make sure was tied in with the right people. This was a huge lift, and it took many, many months. There were also many other pieces with it, and each of us got a big responsibility with that. I did have to start building flows. There was another client that I built a big flow for, which if you are studying Salesforce, then you probably know what that is, but knowing and understanding flows is very important, especially going forward. So this allowed me to practice those things. I was definitely more on my own during this time. I could have reached out for help if I needed to, and I always do. Like if there's something where you're just spinning your wheels, you're wasting your time, you're billing your client too much, you do want to ask for help. And oftentimes 4 eyes or 2 brains works a lot better than just a single person. So during this time, I really tried to work on my own. Again, going back to being resourceful, I would research things until I couldn't anymore, and then I would reach out for help. I never felt like I couldn't ask for help, but at this point, I just wanted to show that I was really learning things, grasping, understanding the information, and able to build things on my own. Over the last few months, I have been working on fewer clients, and this is actually something I kind of requested. I brought it up to my managers that I didn't really appreciate working across so many clients, because I felt like I couldn't completely understand the business, or I was missing context around certain things because I was just given a small piece for one client and then, never worked on them again for months. So I really wanted to focus in on a few clients. So I would say during this time, I was working on 4 to 7, 4 to 8 at a time, but more so on the smaller side. And I still had that one client who I was spending the bulk of my hours on in the week. So like 20 hours dedicated to them in the week during their busy time. And that was really helpful for me to advance my skills because I was able to understand the business and really be an expert in their Salesforce. One thing I wanted to call out because it was such a standing out point to me in my journey is that by December, within December, 10 months into my career is when I finally started to understand flows. Like they made sense because I was working on those flows, the 2 big flows for 2 separate clients, and they were big ones. And I finally was able to understand how to build them, what the things mean, how to debug it and actually correct the issues and see where the problems were so that I could make it actually work. That was really exciting for me because flows is something that I really want to become strong at and good at. You kind of have to at this point, but it's easy to get intimidated by Salesforce flows, and I was so excited to finally start understanding it and feel confident in building that, testing that, all of those things. So that really stood out to me on my journey. Took about 10 months. I'm probably slower than other people with learning stuff just because I have a hard time retaining information. So, some people can kill flows in a few months, but for me, it did take more time. So that brings us to now. This is my, 11th month in this job. And it's been busier, so the new year has been pretty busy. I did get a new client that I've been working on. Still have like 4 to 6 clients, but primarily like 4 to 5 that I work on a weekly basis. At this point, I feel like Salesforce is relatively easy, and that's not something I thought I would say so soon, to be honest, because when you're going through it, it's a little bit overwhelming. And even I feel like I've developed so much as a consultant and as a person and as a Salesforce professional. All of these things really stacked up throughout my time at this company. As far as moving forward, there are a couple of major things that I am working toward. So I did take a certification exam. I have 1 certification. I have my Salesforce Administrator certification, which is just like the first one, the basic one. And I've been working toward getting certified, my Platform App Builder certification. And I took that exam in December, and unfortunately I failed it. So I was hoping to make this video and be like, oh yeah, I have 2 certifications now. But that's not the case. I will be retaking that this month or next month. I'm not really sure yet. And hopefully we'll pass then, fingers crossed on that. But for my company and just as a Salesforce professional in general, I think it's important to maintain those things, keep up your education. You do want to get certifications to stand out, but it's not something that is absolutely necessary. I have seen many of my peers, people who joined Talent Stacker at the same time as I did, or who even started Salesforce, like their Salesforce journey after I did, who have 11 certifications, 15 certifications. It's insane. I often have to remind myself that everybody's journey is different, and it's the same thing. Like, you're going to compare yourself to people when you're trying to get a Salesforce job. If you're in the Talent Stacker program, you're going to see people winning left and right. They're getting certified, they're getting jobs, they're getting blah, blah, blah. The same thing is going to be the case when you actually land a Salesforce job and you've been in it for a few months. I see many people getting all these certifications, and I just have to remind myself that everybody's journey is different. My brain doesn't necessarily work like everybody else. I don't retain information well. I have to really, really study and dedicate time if I want to pass these exams. They're pretty tricky. I'm not the best test taker, etc. I would love to have 15 certifications, and I would love to do those all this year. I have, I envision that, and I think of those things like, oh, I could take this. But for me, that's just not attainable right now. That's not reasonable, and that is perfectly okay. It's not something I am going to stress about. I have my career, I've been advancing, and that is more important to me. But yes, I would like to get my Platform App Builder certification, hopefully within the next month or 2, past that. And then I would probably go after either Experience Builder certification or CPQ. I work in CPQ quite frequently, so that's something I want to get a lot better at because that helps you stand out for future jobs. The other thing is that I am working toward a promotion. So as I said, my company only does promotions in quarter 3 and quarter 1. So after quarter 1, we will have a performance evaluation again. During that time, I am going to ask for a promotion. So I'm an analyst, and then I would be promoted to associate, the next role up. And that is what I am working toward. So hopefully by April, I will get that promotion along with the pay raise. Something many people ask for me to share is a day in my life as a Salesforce consultant. I do have another YouTube channel where I have vlogged some of my days, and you can kind of see. I do work from home, so if I'm working, I'm in front of my computer, and that's what, I spend the whole time in front of the computer. But I will go ahead and break it down a little bit. So I do wake up around 6 a.m. I don't have to wake up at 6 a.m. and that's actually been something more so in the new year. For the last year or so, I haven't been waking up that early, but as of lately, I wake up at 6 a.m. I do my own thing, my morning routine, stuff for myself to set my day up to be good and strong and just to get some things out of my way. I eat breakfast, I get ready, all of that stuff, and I'm typically logging onto my work computer by 8:30 a.m. Sometimes I log on a little bit earlier, but 9 times out of 10, it's me getting on around 8:30. I'm located in the Eastern time zone. I'm in Georgia, by the way. My company is located in DC, so they are also Eastern time, but we have team members all over the country, actually, so there are options to work like Central time or Pacific time, but for me, 8:30 Eastern time is when I log on. I typically quickly check emails. I don't usually have too many, thank goodness. I don't really like emails, but I'll check those, see if there's anything that I need to respond to or just check in on. My company also uses Slack, so I check Slack, look in all the channels that have a highlight, see if there's anything I need to respond to or read. Anything that may have came up over the evening, usually there's not much there either. And then for my first actual task, we use a project management app within Salesforce. So there is something that tells me what I need to do and what I need to prioritize. We can all move things around within there. So if I need to prioritize something, or if my manager says to prioritize it, then I know what to prioritize. So the first thing that I will end up doing in regards to actually working is either the high priority item on my list. If there's something high priority, I will work on that first, or I will choose something that I know I can complete within an hour to an hour and a half, because I have a daily stand-up typically at like 9:45 in the morning or 10 a.m. It just depends. It's just 15 minutes. My team hops on and we give an update on things. So I like to have a solid hour to hour and a half to focus and knock something out. So this could be some documentation, or if I need to retest something or test something that somebody else built, then I'll go ahead and knock that out. I really like to have something that I can move to the next stage. Like it either is ready to go to production or pass to somebody else for testing or to the client for testing. I like to complete something before my internal meeting. That doesn't always happen, but that's usually how I prioritize things. We have the daily stand-up, so that's just 15 minutes. There are some days that are heavy meeting days. So Tuesday is a heavy meeting day for me. Typically on Tuesdays, I'm in meetings for at least 3 to 4 hours. There have been times where I've been in meetings for 7 hours of the 8-hour day. As you can imagine, I can't get too much done in that hour of free time, but having a heavy meeting day isn't necessarily a bad thing, because at least that time is billable, so I'm billing it to clients. Sometimes I'll have working sessions internally for a client, and I can, that's billable time as well. But yeah, some days there are lots and lots of meetings. There are quite a few meetings that I take notes on, so it's my responsibility to take notes. We use Google for everything, like Google Drive, Google Sheets, Google Docs. So typically it's me and whoever is leading the call on that doc who can take notes. So if I miss anything, she would take notes or he would take notes as well. But there are some clients who it's like up to me to take quality notes. So I do have to pay attention and make sure I can type as quickly as people talk. But yeah, just try my best with that. There are some days where I only have a couple of meetings, like half an hour of meetings or an hour of meetings, and then I have way more time to get work done. So it just depends on the week, depends on the day. I do take a lunch break. I do typically go for a walk depending on the weather or depending on how much free time I have. But other than that, I am working in Salesforce, working on the tasks that have been assigned to me. So I feel like I'm a broken record here, but that could be testing, that could be writing up documentation, that could be writing up test cases for somebody to follow. That could be a working session with a teammate or research, just building in Salesforce in general. I could be working on a flow, troubleshooting, trying to find solutions for something. I feel like until you actually work in Salesforce, there's no good way for me to describe exactly what I'm doing. But no day is ever the same. Like, you will never have the same day repeated the next day, or even one day to the next week. There's never going to be a similar day. Every day is different because you're working on different tasks at a different time. And then maybe you present that work to the client and they want to change something. So then you make updates to it and wash, repeat. I will put up on the screen a list of things, the main things that I have done throughout the past 11 months. If you have not worked in Salesforce, you probably won't know what these things are, but I don't want to go into great detail about them because there is no point. Like, once you get your Salesforce career, or if you're in it, that you know what I'm talking about, you can feel free to look these up if you think that will be helpful. But I found that working in this career, I have learned so much in such a short amount of time. And that's Salesforce skills, Excel skills, consulting skills, all the things. I have learned it really quickly because you kind of have to. And it also depends on your team and your managers and stuff, but it's up to you to work toward that. And I feel like it's gone great so far. I typically finish my workday by 5 p.m. Sometimes it'll go into 5:30 if I'm really wanting to wrap something up, but I don't, I do my 8 hours of billable time and I'm typically good. There are some days where I have to do a deployment, and I am never alone when doing a deployment. So it's always me and another teammate, or me and a couple of other people. But sometimes we will do after hours deployments. It depends on the client. So there's some clients who don't mind if you do a deployment during their business hours because it may be something smaller that doesn't affect their work. But with the deployment, what that means is that whatever you built in their Salesforce, in their sandbox, which is just kind of like a test environment, you need to push that into their production, into their Salesforce org that they actually use as a company. So for many clients, you need to do this after hours because you don't want to mess anything up that anybody is doing, because you typically have to shut things off or turn things on, and it can really cause a lot of damage if you're working in there while somebody else is in there. Those deployments are usually from like 5 to 7 or 5 to 8, 6 to 8 type of thing. And it's like once or twice a month. But again, this is going to depend on whether you're working on multiple clients or one client. But for me, one client of mine in particular always has after hours deployments, and it's typically twice a month that we're doing that. And I always know in advance, so it's not a big deal. The other good thing, and this is specific to my company, but is probably pretty standard across the board, is that if I end up working a 10-hour day, then I can work a shorter day sometime later in the week. So if I do 10 hours on Tuesday, then I can maybe do 6 hours on Friday or 6 hours on Thursday, or I could just have some extra time and that goes toward my utilization hours, and then I can take more PTO in the future. Okay, next up are the pros and cons of Salesforce consulting. I'm gonna go over the cons first. I feel like my cons list is a little bit, it's longer, but okay, let's just get into it. So first con is what I just mentioned, the after-hour deployment. Sometimes it can be a pain. I'm like, I wanted to go to the gym, but I am not going to today because it's 7:30 and I'm still working. But it's nothing crazy. At least I work from home. So that's one con. The second thing is that sometimes I am given work, I am assigned a task that I don't have much context on, and I find that really frustrating. It's gotten better because I will typically voice my, like, I don't have much context on this. Could we hop on a call and you explain it? So anytime that I don't have enough context on it, I don't have enough information, I am not going to just guess and float around. If it's not something I can easily figure out, then I will reach out to whoever assigned it to me and get some more clarification. But there are some people who will just give things to you without, it just depends on the company or the person really. Sometimes they'll give something to you without explaining too much, or they don't do such a great job with documentation that others do. So it can be a little bit frustrating. The third thing is jumping from client to client. Really, you have to refocus, and that can be difficult sometimes. So I'll be working in one Salesforce instance, but then I have to, get on a meeting for a different client, or somebody pings me on Slack that they need this completed, or we get an email that there's a problem. and it could be a completely different client, and we have to prioritize that. That's been something to get used to. I feel like now I handle that pretty well. I don't think it's a big problem. I'm able to shift focus pretty easily at this point, but sometimes it can get frustrating, especially when you're in like a flow mode. You're like focusing in on this specific task, this specific client, but then something comes up and you just have to shift focus. The fourth thing I've already kind of touched on, heavy meeting days. I don't mind them too much because it's all billable time, but it can be a lot. There have been times where I am like stuffing my face to eat lunch because I have back-to-back meetings from like 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. So I just eat real quick between a call, run to the bathroom, or I just like shut my camera off real quick so I can stuff my face, and I find that really frustrating. I don't like when that's the situation, but sometimes you have to. It's not very frequent that I feel I need to do that, but it has happened, and I think that's just normal with consulting. There are a lot of pros with my job specifically, i.e. my benefits, which I already went over, so I'm not going to talk about that again, but I think the biggest pro to Salesforce consulting and what I have appreciated so much is the amount of skills that I have gained in the last 11 months. It is insane. Not only the hard skills that you need to know for this job, like Salesforce, building and testing, all that stuff in Salesforce. I have gained so much knowledge that I didn't even think was possible in the last 11 months. Also, looking back, this is something I may have said in other videos, but when I was interviewing and stuff and going through like technical screenings and stuff, not all companies did it, but I find that now, looking back, I find that so frustrating now because once I started actually implementing Salesforce, like you can do it. You will learn it. You will figure it out. But if you're going from no experience in Salesforce, like you've never worked in a professional org or anything, and trying to do a technical screening, it's hard. It's really, really challenging. So I almost feel frustrated that they ask for people to do that because it's not a good measure of your ability to be a Salesforce consultant or an admin or any of these roles, because I have learned so much and I've been able to do so much. And I was able to do that within a few months. You will learn it and you will learn it quickly. So Salesforce, Excel is another area that I've learned a lot in. VLOOKUPs and pivot tables are a big thing, something you'll want to get familiar with, just understanding data in general and keeping all of that put together. There are some integrations that you'll probably learn if you become a consultant, or it depends, like if you're an admin and you have a specific integration with Salesforce that your company uses. So for example, this could be Stripe, Pardot, HubSpot, all of these things. There are so many. It's unlimited, all of the things that you could potentially learn. I have found the big one for my situation was related to that one main client of mine. I had to learn Stripe just as much as I had to learn Salesforce. So now I'm like the person to go to for this client when it comes to Stripe, and they have an integration with Salesforce. So I really had to make sure I studied up on Stripe and learned all of that, the ins and outs, so that I could give the best answers when the client asks about it or any of my teammates ask about it. Of course, more than one person. It's not just me learning about Stripe. It was many of us on the team, but that's not something I expected. And along with Salesforce, I also have knowledge on Stripe and other integrations. I wrote a list of skills down that I feel are really important for being a Salesforce consultant. And I think this is where, if you're interviewing to become a Salesforce consultant or anything to do with Salesforce, I think these soft skills and some hard skills, I suppose, are things that you can pull from previous jobs, previous experiences, because all of that was relevant. Everything from my previous career, the soft skills that I gained, and even, like documentation, Excel, that sort of stuff, I was able to utilize for interviews and at my actual job. But all of these things are really important. So first thing is speaking in front of others, presenting, communication in general. You want to be clear, you want to be to the point, and really just be able to have a conversation, like not be awkward, just be able to speak with the client and with your teammates. Problem solving is a big one. So many times the clients will come to you with something they want fixed. They may not have the solution to it, or they may have a solution to it, but it's not the best one. So you have to come up with a better solution. Really, it's about problem solving when it comes to Salesforce. And I find the idea of that so difficult to grasp before I became a Salesforce professional, like an actual paid Salesforce professional, because they always said Salesforce is about problem solving. And now that I'm in it, I see it. You know, the client is going to ask for something. They want this to connect to this and to update that type of thing. And they may have an idea of how this would work, but you as the Salesforce expert will tell them that's not going to work because of X, Y, Z. We could instead try this, 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 or we could try this, this, this. And that's exactly what it means to be a problem solver, because you are the Salesforce professional and you will tell them the best solution for their problem. I mentioned this already, but resourcefulness, huge. Just Google. Like, everything you need to find is probably on Google somewhere. Like, you'll find it on a Salesforce forum, on Reddit, on YouTube, all these things. And if you exhaust all your options, there are some really specific things that you'll need to find it, like get help on or find answers for, and you're not gonna be able to find those. But you can kind of figure it out based off of everything else that's out there. Otherwise, reach out for help. Attention to detail is huge as well. As an analyst, I also am dealing with a lot of data, or just data in Salesforce, data in Excel. You have to keep that organized. Like, if you mess anything up, you could literally mess up everything across the company. So you really have to pay attention. Sometimes there's things that are more important than other things, or things that cannot be fixed very easily. So those are where you really want to focus in and pay attention, or have somebody else doing it with you. Otherwise, oftentimes many things are fixable, but you do want to pay a lot of attention to what you're doing and double check your work. Time management. You are going to have a lot of projects to work on, a lot of tasks to work on. You have to be able to juggle all those things and manage your time so that you are finishing things within an appropriate time, so you're not billing like hundreds of hours to the client. Also, there may be deadlines where something needs to be live for the client at a specific time. Other people may be relying on you, the client, or your team members. And also, just between all of your meetings and the transition between working on one client to another, it all comes back to time management. Individual work is important, but so is teamwork. You've got to be both of those. I would say teamwork is even more important than individual work, to be honest. You got to be flexible. There's going to be things that you're going to do that you don't like doing, or that you don't want to do, or there's going to be weird time changes, or you're going to have to do those after-hour deployments. I do think being flexible is a big part of consulting. The ability to switch focus, as I talked about, jumping from client to client or meeting to meeting. You do need to be organized, so I live by my Google Calendar. I keep all of my clients on a separate Google profile. We have like a password thing that stores our passwords. Everything is stored there. I try my best to keep everything organized. Name things appropriately so you know which client that document belongs to, the date, all of that. Organization is huge. And then punctual. You need to be punctual. Show up to meetings on time, because it won't look good if you don't. My team, like everybody at my company, is on time, hardworking. It's crazy. I don't know what it is, but the managers at my company do such a good job of hiring the team members, or at least from what I've experienced. Everybody is so hardworking and knowledgeable and helpful, and that's insane to me. So at least at my company, if you're not punctual, then you're gonna stand out. Like, you can't just hop onto the meeting 10 minutes later and be like, oh, so sorry, I overslept. Like, you don't do that here. There's times where another meeting may go over, so you hop into Slack, like, I'm running late because of this, or if you had an appointment or something, like, that's fine, it's going to happen. But for the most part, you should be on time to these Zoom meetings, especially with clients, and just punctual in general, so that you're getting your work done within deadlines, getting work done that other people may need. Okay. I know that was so much, but I wanted to make sure I gave you as much detail as I possibly could. So as I said, I will have those timestamps down below. Overall, I would say that this has been, it's been a transition. Like, it really has felt like a transition. I came from quite a low stress job into something that was much more stressful. I feel like I'm working more than I did before, because at my previous job as a microbiologist, there was a lot of downtime because I had to wait for things to run, or I just didn't have as much responsibility. I didn't have multiple things going on at once that needed my attention. So I do feel like I'm working more, and it is a little bit more stressful. I feel way more challenged at this job because it's a new thing to me, and I have had to teach myself many things with Salesforce, keep on learning. I've had to reach out to people for help. It's not only Salesforce, but the consulting side of things too, learning how to bill my time properly and just all those consultant skills that I was going through. With time, the job has gotten easier and less stressful because you get used to it. It's just something you adjust to. That's how it is. You adjust to a new job, you adjust to the workload, and it becomes your new normal. I do think this is something that is highly scalable, so I am looking forward to getting a promotion within this company, and I don't know after that. I kind of am just taking things month by month at this point because I could switch to a different company and potentially increase my income, but I am just taking it day by day, month by month, and seeing what happens, and one achievement at a time, basically.